Today we're talking about a man so fundamental to the American story that he's often called the first American, or even the president who never actually was. Benjamin Franklin.
I mean, you've seen his face 1,000 times on the $100 bill, but have you ever really stopped to think about it? Why him? Of all the founders, why is Benjamin Franklin, a man who never held the nation's highest office, on one of the most valuable pieces of currency in the world? Well, let's get into it. To really get Franklin, you first have to understand an idea that he practically invented for America: the self-made man. He is the poster child for this. He's the original blueprint. Born into a huge family with almost no money, Franklin's entire life was basically proof of the idea that you can build an empire out of nothing but your own determination and your own bright ideas. But here's the thing, his journey didn't start with him building things up. It actually started with him tearing down the walls around him. His very first act of creating himself was, in fact, an act of pure rebellion. Just look at this timeline. The odds were completely stacked against him. He was the 15th of 17 kids. His official schooling was done by the time he was 10, and at 12, he was legally bound to a 9-year apprenticeship with his older brother. You have to understand, that was basically a form of indentured servitude. It was a suffocating way to start your life.
So, how does a kid who's basically trapped find a way to get his voice out there? Well, he invents a new one. He was desperate to write for his brother's newspaper, but knew James would never let him. So he came up with this brilliant persona, Silent Dogwood, a clever, middle-aged widow. He'd slip her letters under the shop door at night, and wouldn't you know it, they became a huge hit. The public absolutely loved her. But when his brother found out who was really writing them, he was furious.
And this really shows you what was going on. On one side, you have his brother's treatment. It was harsh, oppressive, and James was clearly jealous of his little brother's talent. There was even physical abuse. So for Ben, the choice became pretty clear. Running away was a huge risk, it was illegal, and it branded him as a fugitive, but it was the only path he saw to actually owning his own future.
So at 17, he makes a run for it. He lands in Philadelphia, a runaway with practically nothing in his pockets. The image he paints in his autobiography is just so vivid. A teenager soaked and tired, walking down the street, awkwardly holding 3 giant puffy loaves of bread because it was all he could afford to eat. This was his rock bottom. This was day 1 of his new life.
And from that absolute low point, Franklin began one of the most amazing and calculated climbs to the top in American history. This next chapter is all about how he went from runaway apprentice to the most successful printer in all of Philadelphia. Now, after a really disappointing trip to London, where a man who promised to help him basically left him high and dry, Franklin came back to Philadelphia with a new fire in his belly. He made sure everyone saw him working. He wanted people to see him pushing that wheelbarrow full of paper through the streets, early in the morning, late at night. He wasn't just working hard, he was building a brand. He was becoming the image of industry. And he leveraged that reputation like a genius. He bought a newspaper that was failing and turned it into the most read paper in the colonies. And then came Poor Richard's Almanac, which was a total game changer. It wasn't just a calendar with weather forecasts. It was packed with practical advice, jokes, and these clever little sayings about saving money and working hard that started to weave themselves into the fabric of American culture. I mean, come on, you know this one. This is pure Franklin. It's simple, it's memorable, and it's aspirational. He wasn't just selling books, he was selling a whole philosophy. The idea that any ordinary person could improve their station in life through their own discipline. But here's what really set Franklin apart. His ambition wasn't just about himself. Once he had made his fortune, he turned that same systematic mind to the world around him. He didn't just want to live in Philadelphia, he wanted to actively build a better Philadelphia. Just look at how his brain worked. He would identify a problem in society, and then he'd engineer a solution. People need a place for intelligent discussion? Okay, let's create the Junto Club. Books are way too expensive for regular folks. Fine, let's pool our money and create the first subscription library. The city keeps catching on fire? Right, let's organize a volunteer fire department. Each one was a practical, elegant solution that made life better for everyone. So he's a business tycoon and a civic visionary. But Franklin's curiosity was just too big to be contained.
It pushed him into science, which, in a funny twist of fate, is exactly what launched him onto the world stage as a statesman.
This is probably his most famous story, right? The kite, the key, the storm. But it's so much more than a cool experiment. By proving lightning was just a form of electricity, he demystified one of nature's most terrifying forces, and the invention of the lightning rod was a practical tool that saved countless homes and lives. But politically, it was a lightning strike of its own. It made him an international superstar. He wasn't just a printer from the colonies anymore, he was one of the greatest scientific minds on the planet. And that scientific fame became his ultimate diplomatic passport. When America was losing the Revolutionary War and desperately needed a powerful ally, who did they send to the sophisticated courts of France? Not a general, not a career politician. They sent the world-famous scientist, Benjamin Franklin. His celebrity and his wit were absolutely essential in securing the French alliance that ultimately won the war. He was truly one of the key architects of the United States.
So we've seen the printer, the citizen, the scientist, and the statesman. But maybe, just maybe, Franklin's most ambitious and enduring project wasn't a newspaper or even a nation. Maybe it was himself. Franklin was keenly aware of his own flaws. He knew he could be arrogant, that he loved to argue and show off how smart he was. So what did he do? He decided to systematically fix himself. He created this list of 13 virtues and kept a little chart, focusing on mastering one virtue each week. He treated his own character like it was a scientific problem to be solved. He was literally designing the man he wanted to be.
And not project of self-improvement, of becoming a better, more just person, continued right up until the very end. In his final months, at 84 years old, he undertook one last major public fight. And this is incredible. He, a man who had owned slaves earlier in his life, used his fame to petition the new U.S. Congress to do something truly radical, abolish slavery. His capacity for growth never, ever stopped.
So, back to the $100 bill. Why is he on it? Because Benjamin Franklin's story is America's story. Or at least the story it tells itself. He wasn't born great. He built greatness, piece by piece, idea by idea. He's more than a founding father. He is the ultimate symbol of that independent spirit, the living proof that a single person with enough curiosity and hard work can remake not only themselves, but maybe, just maybe, the entire world.